Until you become unbeatable, the market does not want you to succeed. Millions of people engage in the same conflict every day while seated in front of their devices. They've got charts, measures, perhaps even a purported edge. However, something occurs as soon as the market opens. The scheme they practiced? Disappear. Their beliefs? Breaks. Their palm? Uneasy. In an instant, the market devours them. This is a fun fact. Day traders lose 95% of their money. Not 50%, 70%, not 95% of it. The odds are worse than in a casino. You get free cocktails while being robbed, at least in Vegas. Most believe that trading is about identifying trends. A magical sign. The ideal entrance. What if I told you that the world's top traders aren't fixated on setups? They have a self-obsession. In actuality, you are not trading the market. You are exchanging your beliefs, your pride, your injuries. The market is your reflection, not your rival. It shows you rather than punishing you. And that's precisely why a lot of people lose. What they fail to mention, however, is that the most renowned dealers in history weren't born unique. They had neither crystal balls nor magic systems. They simply grew weary of lying to themselves. They confronted the dread, their haughtiness, their greedy, and they burned everything away using the market. Jack Schwager spoke with the best traders still living in the new market wizards. These individuals won tens of millions by developing resilience rather than by being correct. A few worked as educators. Others were former poker players or math nerds. They were all not naturals. One thing, though, was that they all underwent transformation. This isn't a how-to. This serves as a guide for identity alchemy. You'll meet the trader who used his fear of losing money to make a fortune. The man gained a competitive edge by mastering the art of losing. The intuitive genius who had seen 10,000 charts and trusted his instincts. You'll also learn why the suffering you've been trying to avoid may be your greatest advantage. Therefore, if you've ever been angry, stop trading. Have you ever followed a candle that caused your account to burn? This is the story for you if you've ever wondered, why do I keep doing this to myself? The market doesn't want you to win, in actuality, until you become someone it cannot destroy, that is. Let's get started. First insight. The market is a mirror. The market isn't here to help you become wealthy. It's not here to reward your intelligence or validate your forecasts. The market is indifferent. No recall. No pity. It does, however, have a flawless mirror at all times. One that captures all within you. Your want, your dread, your frustration, your haughtiness. It is rarely seen by most. When in fact price action is evaluating them, they believe they are analyzing price action. One theme keeps coming up in Jack Schwager's interviews. Those who succeed in this game are familiar with themselves, not just charts. Their patterns have been examined. Their instincts. Their inner turmoil. A trader stated, "I realized I was chasing trades the same way I used to chase validation as a kid." Someone else admitted, "I was trying to beat the market the way I used to try to impress my father." Contemplate it. How many of your trades are reenactments of emotions? How often do you hold on too long because you would have to acknowledge your mistakes if you let go? How often do you size up because you want to feel strong rather than because it's smart? Your emotions are irrelevant to the market. However, you'll see them. It turns into the best therapist you've ever had if you pay attention, since it is truthful. Do you blow up an account? The market is not to blame for it. That is your unresolved impulse, right in front of you. A trader's explanation of why he began journaling, not his transactions but his feelings throughout each one, was one of David's most impactful moments. He saw trends throughout time, not in the marketplace, but within himself. After 3 defeats, fear always surfaced. Every time he saw a friend publish a gain, greed took over. More than any technical indicator, he developed the ability to predict his inner impulses. The true breakthrough came from observation, rather than forecasting. Emotion was not eradicated by these traders. It was respected by them, studied it, disarmed it. After that, trading stopped being a panic and instead turned into a performance. Now consider this. What if each trade you make is a test of your self-awareness rather than your strategy? What if your greatest advantage isn't a new system, but rather realizing what the market has been attempting to tell you all along? If that thought strikes a chord with you, wait till you meet the trader who used terror as the cornerstone of his empire. Insight 2. Why cowards are the best traders. The world's greatest traders are cowards. They're not audacious. They don't act carelessly. They don't wager the entire farm. In actuality, they trade less when the stakes are larger. Doesn't that sound backwards? However, this trend repeatedly surfaced in Schwager's interviews. The best traders were terrified rather than courageous. Tony Saliba used a $50,000 account to trade options and earned $8 million. However, he did not discuss setups or volatility curves in his response to Schwager's question on how he did it. It had to do with risk control, which was so compulsive that it was almost paranoid. If anything didn't feel right, he would turn away from his screen in the middle of a trade. After a victory, he would shrink his position in order to avoid becoming overconfident. If a deal ever began to feel too good, that was his signal to leave. One of the biggest bond dealers in the world is Tom Baldwin. He was supposed to be combative. In just a few minutes, he completed thousands of contracts. Beneath that exterior, however, lurked a defense-oriented mind. He didn't pursue victories, he expected peril. How big is he? Meticulously calculated. His defeats? Ruthlessly sliced. The paradox is that amateurs believe courage entails perseverance. However, experts understand that true bravery is letting go. Letting go of poor bargains. Letting go of pride. Letting go of the need to be correct. Every time I start getting confident, I size down, a trader said to Schwager. I want to feel like I might lose because it helps me stay focused. It's not cowardly, that's mastery. As you can see, the majority of people enter the market in search of profit. They are seeking excitement. However, the advantages? They are looking for danger. They survive because of that. They endure because of this. It's similar to balancing over a canyon on a tightrope. The typical dealer observes the scenery. The great trader keeps an eye on the wind. This kind of thinking turns everything upside down. After winning, the average person feels pleased and increases their wagers. After a victory, a master becomes suspicious and safeguards their capital because defeat isn't the true threat. It's conceit. What's the fastest way to make a small fortune trading? Is a joke from the trading floor. Start with a huge fortune and no risk control. Therefore, if you've ever said to yourself, I need to take more risk to grow, you should reconsider. What if you don't require any additional bravery? What if you require further fear? What if the voice telling you to slow down is the one that makes you a legend? Because bravery does not translate into wealth while trading. It's survival. But what if I told you that if you're trading someone else's system, even survival is insufficient? Insight 3. The personal edge is the only holy grail. One thing unites all losing traders. They never stop looking for the ideal strategy. They switch between different strategies. RSI this week. Next week is Fibonacci. Next month, perhaps some Wyckoff. It worked for someone else. So what's wrong with me? Is what they say each time it doesn't work. The twist is that there is nothing wrong with you. The question is, what's wrong? Because there is no one-size-fits-all approach, as Jack Schwager found after speaking with dozens of trading legends. The system used by these merchants was different. The indicators they used were different. Some were really technical. Others trusted their instincts. A few tick charts were scalped. Others worked for months. They only have one thing in common: self-awareness. Consider trend-following trader Mark Ritchie, who used huge moves over time to transform $30,000 into millions. The key is to find an approach that fits your personality, he said to Schwager. That's all. Not what is effective on paper, not what does a good backtest, but what suits you, your emotional rhythm, your pain threshold, and your psychology. Compare that to Linda Raschke, who became wealthy through quick intraday trades. Long-term jobs were psychological agony for her. It wasn't bad to hold transactions for weeks, it was just wrong for her. Can you see the pattern? There is no system for the Holy Grail. Alignment is the cause. Alignment between your trading style and your identity. But being honest is necessary for it. And the majority of folks steer clear of that, because it's simpler to imitate someone than to face your own wiring. It's easier to follow a signal than to acknowledge that your risk tolerance is quite low. It's easier to blame a method than to wonder, am I even meant to trade this way? Here's the metaphor Schwager never used, but it's accurate. Trying to impose someone else's system on your brain is like borrowing shoes 2 sizes too small and attempting to run a marathon. Painful, awkward, and destined to fail. So, what is the solution? Stop focusing on what is working right now. Begin studying yourself. Keep a journal of your emotional triggers. Monitor your comfort zones. Keep track of when you're in the flow and when you're panicking. Then reverse engineer a strategy to fit that. Because the traders in the new market wizards did not succeed because their strategies were superior. They prevailed because their systems were designed to match their inner world. One merchant put it perfectly. I spent years searching for the Holy Grail outside. It turned out that it had always been inside me. I just had to sift through a lot of BS to locate it. So if you've been feeling like a failure for not getting it, this is your permission slip. You do not need to obtain someone else's system. You must create one that fits your soul, but it takes time. The process generally begins with pain rather than success. Insight. 4, they blew up. Then they became millionaires. Every merchant carries a scar. Some simply wear it better. Before they became legendary, the market crushed them, humbled them. They were humiliated. When their accounts were empty and their confidence was crushed, they had a choice: quit or transform. Jack Schwager did not simply interview success stories. He interviewed the survivors. And what he discovered was a hidden pattern. Almost every market wizard had previously blown up. Not just lose a little. Not only did I have a rough week, complete devastation. One trader admitted to losing $600,000 in a single afternoon because he refused to stop a losing position. Another became greedy, doubled down, and saw months of earnings vanish in minutes. But no one blamed the market. They blamed their mindset, their ego, their illusion of control. That's when something unusual occurred. Their true trip started. Profits were not what made them great. It was the ache. Because pain ended the delusion, it demolished the notion that they were smarter, faster, and invincible. In the ashes of that collapse, they rebuilt. But this time, it's with humility. Bruce Kavanagh stated it best: the worst thing that can happen to a new trader is to win big on their first trade. Because early success produces delusions. What about early failure? That develops character. Schwager's interviews featured traders who only began to take risk management seriously when the market hit them in the gut. One blew up 3 times before implementing strong stop-loss policies. Another kept a snapshot of his worst loss next to his screen as a reminder of the consequences of arrogance. You see, in trading, suffering is more than just feedback. It is curriculum. Every blown account serves as a lesson in disguise. And if you survive it, not just financially but mentally, you will not be the same person. You return reborn. It's what Joseph Campbell dubbed the dark night of the soul. In legend, the hero must travel to the underworld before returning with the treasure. In trading, the underworld represents your worst loss, your panic, your disgrace. The difference between amateurs and masters lies in their perseverance. One trader told Schwager, "I lost everything at 25. By the age of 30, I had become a millionaire." What's the difference? I stopped fighting the market and began learning from it. Another person stated, "My worst day became my best teacher." Now I hold that memory close, not to punish myself, but to remind myself of how far I've come. So if you've blown up previously, that's good. This implies you've started. The market has initiated you. The question now is whether you will run away from the lesson or embrace it. After a loss, there is a new beginning. Someone who no longer fears the market because they have lost their fear of themselves. And once you've experienced that anguish, you'll be ready to acquire the most astonishing talent of all: how to lose like a winner. Insight 5. Losing is a skill. Nobody tells you this when you first start trading. The traders who make the most money have mastered the art of losing. Sounds ridiculous, right? However, the lesson is evident throughout the new market wizards. Losing isn't merely a part of trading. It is a skill set, one that distinguishes those who survive from those who spiral, because everybody loses, but only the finest understand how. One trader Schwager questioned referred to losses as tuition. He explained, "The market taxes you to learn." However, most people drop out after the first semester. That one line speaks everything, because amateurs view a loss as a verdict, but professionals treat it as data. Consider Marty Schwartz, one of the most reliable traders Schwager investigated. Throughout his career, he transformed $40,000 into $20 million. What's his rule? If the market begins to move against you, don't justify. Do not hope. Do not wait. Get out. Reset. Move on. He had no emotional tie to being correct. He simply wanted to trade successfully, and trading well meant losing quickly. In contrast, the ordinary trader holds onto a sinking position, telling themselves, "It'll bounce." Each tick against them feels personal. And before they realize it, a tiny paper cut has grown into a massive wound. But here's the fact, which Schwager repeatedly exposes: losing is unavoidable. Prolonged loss is optional. The greats did not avoid defeats. They absorbed them. They expected them. They even welcomed them, believing that a speedy loss demonstrated discipline. A little red trade indicates that you followed the plan. A stopped-out position? That demonstrates appreciation for risk, not failure. In fact, some of Schwager's most outstanding traders had victory percentages as low as 40%. But they made millions. Why? Because they won huge. When they did lose, it was a tiny loss. That is it. The entire calculus of top trading can be summarized in one sentence: maximize winnings, reduce losers, and survive long enough to repeat. So why is it so difficult? Because ego despises losing. Because childhood conditioning equates failure with shame. Because social media only commemorates green days, but the market does not care. It needs your humility. And until you give it up, it will take everything else. My favorite trading joke is, what's the difference between a new trader and an old trader? The novice trader believes that every loss means the end of the world. The old trader knows it's just Tuesday. So here's the shift. Start seeing a good loss as a win, a quick exit as a victory, a trade you walk away from as a sign of strength. Because in this game, the trader who loses best eventually wins biggest. And once you learn to lose without fear, a strange thing happens. Your intuition starts to awaken. Insight 6. Intuition is earned. We love the idea of the trading genius, the savant who just knows. No charts, no signals, just instinct. But here's what the new Market Wizards reveals. Intuition isn't magic. It's memory. Schwager's interviews repeatedly uncover the truth behind the myth. Traders that rely on their instincts did not begin there. They deserved it. They developed their intuition over years of market exposure, emotional indoctrination, and brutal pattern recognition. Their instinct is not a guess, but a silent summation of 10,000 trades. Bruce Kavanagh, one of the most famous traders of all time, who turned $3,000 into $300 million, put it like, wait, there comes a point when you sense the beat. You can't always describe it, but you know something's wrong. That is not superstition, that is subconscious synthesis. His brain had taken in so much market activity that it could detect danger before his conscious mind caught up. And this isn't just poetry, it's biological. In neuroscience, this is referred to as implicit learning. It's how athletes perceive momentum shifts, how musicians plan chord progressions. With enough repetitions, the human brain can create a finely tuned radar that feels more than it thinks. But there's a catch. True intuition takes years of feedback to develop. You can only get that feedback if you pay attentively. Journaling, reviewing, feeling your successes and defeats rather than numbing them. That emotional imprint becomes your advantage. One trader I spoke with stated that he would narrate the market aloud while monitoring it. I notice price stutter. I sense buyer hesitancy. Volume does not confirm the breakout. He wasn't simply looking, he was instructing his neurological system to interpret. What's the problem? The majority of newcomers become perplexed. They act on impulse, a hunch, or a sense. That is not intuition, that is adrenaline. True intuition lacks haste. It is quiet. It does not yell. It whispers. And it is nearly always preceded by a long, arduous apprenticeship, the kind where you trade for months without knowing why anything works until one day, the fog lifts. One trader joked, "I spent 5 years earning the right to trust my instincts. Before then, my tummy was simply hungry." So if you don't trust your instincts yet, that's fine. That means you're truthful. What if you want to create it? Begin by mastering the uninteresting tasks. Keep track of every move. Evaluate each trade. Speak your views aloud. What feels intuitive later is a result of conscious actions taken now. And as your instincts strengthen, you will encounter a new threat: the temptation to size up. However, as you'll discover, confidence may be just as dangerous as fear. Insight 7. Size crushes. Confidence. It's the most alluring time to trade when you feel untouchable. You just completed 3 successful deals in a row. The setups were clean. Your timing was perfect. The market moved just as you expected. Your confidence? Peaking. What's your logic? Dopamine is making me feel good. Then a thought occurs. The next one? I'm going big. That's when most traders die. Schwager emphasizes this topic throughout the new Market Wizards. Confidence kills more traders than fear ever could. Nothing fuels overconfidence like size. One famous trader stated it bluntly: the fastest way to end a winning streak is to bet like you deserve one. Another stated, When I'm feeling well, I become terrified. That's when I realized I needed to minimize my size. Why? Because size doesn't merely increase profits, it enhances emotions. You may believe you're calm, collected, and disciplined, but increase your posture by 5 times and every candle feels like a hit to the chest. Your breathing tightens, your time horizon shrinks, the scheme fails. You are no longer trading the chart, you are trading your survival response. And here's the twist. While you're winning, going big feels rational. You believe, I've earned this. But what you've really earned is the right to be consistent. It is not right to break your own rules. Schwager shares the stories of successful traders who became overconfident and distorted their approach. One enormous transaction, an unexpected reversal, one slip in humility. And just like that, they had wiped $2 million in earnings in one afternoon. It wasn't the market that caused it. It was them, misled by their own assumption that they were in charge. True professionals approach position sizing as if it were bomb disposal. Precise, conservative, never take lightly. They recognize that the goal is not to get rich quickly, but to stay in the game long enough to get rich gradually. One trader had a rule. I size down after a win, never following a loss. Why? Because it prevents ego inflation. Because it compels you to remain process-oriented. Because when you're at your most confident, you're also most vulnerable. Here's a Wall Street saying, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So here's your shift. Instead of asking, how much can I make? Ask, how much pressure can I handle before self-sabotage? Because the greatest risk is not in the market. It's the version of you who appears when the money gets too big to handle. But if you can master that version, if you can trade small but think big, you're ready for the game's deeper layers. The one that is completely unrelated to charts and entirely concerned with your soul. Insight. 8. The market as a spiritual dojo. Most individuals believe that trading is about money. It is not. It is about awakening. Behind every position size, stop loss, and green candle comes a more fundamental question. Who are you becoming? Because the market does not just test your strategy. It tests your character, your patience, your discipline, your truth. Schwager does not explicitly state this in The New Market Wizards, but if you read between the lines, you will notice that every trader's trip is a spiritual initiation. Not with incense and robes, but with crimson days, restless nights, and the gradual death of the ego. One trader put it this way, after a while I stopped trying to beat the market. I began attempting to beat myself, the worst aspects of myself. That's exactly what this is, a confrontation with your shadow. You need to win. You are afraid of being wrong, your need for control. The market brings everything to the surface. Every trade is a mirror. Every loss teaches us something. Each rally is a test. And like martial arts, trading teaches by repetition. You do not become enlightened after one meditation, nor do you become a master after one winning streak. Lessons are learned in the trenches, in the painful consistency of showing up, having your shortcomings revealed, and refusing to turn away. You learn separation, you acquire humility, you learn to be present. You know that you cannot push the market or life. You start letting go, not in a passive manner, in a forceful manner. You behave without needing to. You perform without chasing. You accept without crumbling. A trader commented, the moment I stopped needing the market to validate me, I started making real money. This isn't merely a financial breakthrough, that is a spiritual transformation. And it isn't just you. Every wizard Schwager met with had experienced this inward transformation. They did not simply adapt their strategies, they evolved their identity. They moved from reaction to response, from control to flow, from terror to quiet. The market did not alter. They did. Here is a Zen koan for traders. Before enlightenment, buy low, sell high. After enlightenment, buy low and sell high. The actions appear identical, but who is taking them? Completely different. So what if every losing trade was an invitation? What if you're fighting your history rather than the price? Is it possible that the game is rigged to make you real rather than rich? Belts are not used in the market's dojo, no trophies. There's just one prize. The version of yourself that emerges after you've given up all you thought you needed and found peace in the discipline itself. And when you reach that point, When you stop stressing over outcomes, you'll finally comprehend the most sacred rule of them all. Process is more important than profit. Ritual trumps result. Identity trumps income. Insight 9. Process. Outcome. If you observed a superb trader work, not just the entries and exits, you might be shocked. They don't seem excited. They do not appear nervous. They appear uninteresting. Because the top traders in the world don't chase results. They are honoring the process. This idea recurs throughout the new market wizards. When a trader becomes obsessed with results, they begin to violate the one thing that has brought them success: consistency. And consistency only exists within the process. One trader expressed it like way, "I stopped caring whether I was correct. I simply cared that I obeyed my regulations." That is not detachment, it is discipline. Because if your identity is linked to being correct, the market will break you. However, if your identity is linked to showing up with accuracy, no win or loss will shake you. This is where trade becomes a ritual. You awaken at the same time, scan the same configurations, place identical risk-managed trades. Not because you are robotic, but because you like the rhythm. You rely on the routine. You understand that edge is not about magic, but about repetition. One of Schwager's interviewees recounted a day when he meticulously followed his system, every exit, stop, and confirmation, but still lost money. But he went home smiling, because that was the perfect day. The market did not reward him, but the process did. His confidence was intact, his identification remained stable. And therein lies the magic. When you follow the procedure, your self-worth no longer fluctuates in tandem with your profit and loss statement. Most traders, they win and feel like gods. They lose and feel like garbage. It's called emotional whiplash. When you fall in love with execution, your psyche becomes impenetrable. You no longer require market validation. You begin creating it internally. This is how expert traders can lose for days and yet present with clarity. Because their process is the anchor. Their habits form the hedge. Their consistency is the cushion. Consider this. Would you prefer a successful system that cannot be replicated, or a method that wins consistently because you have become predictable? The market thrives on unpredictability. Your role is to be the only constant in that turmoil. One trader recorded the following in his journal. "This is a bad day for the account. Today is a great day for discipline. I'll take it." So if you've been on an emotional roller coaster, try this. For the next week, evaluate yourself not on profits, but on discipline. Did you obey the rules? Did you carry out your tasks correctly? Did you avoid emotional transactions? Because it is the true scoreboard. Not your gains, but your development. When you can live within your process, odd things happen. You gain flexibility, you let go. You begin flowing, and that's when you realize the dichotomy at the heart of mastery. Conviction must coexist with surrender. Insight 10. Conviction must dance with surrender. Most traders believe that to win, they must have strong conviction in their setup, thesis, and market read. They're correct, but just halfway. Because what is conviction if it is not flexible? That is not strength. That is suicide. Schwager's book, The New Market Wizards, reveals an unexpected feature among the most successful traders. They keep their thoughts light, they act boldly, and then immediately switch course if the market proves them wrong. There is no pride, no need to double down. There will be no disputing with the tape. Just pivot. One trader stated it perfectly. "I'm always confident in my trade until I'm not. And when I am not, I am gone." That is the paradox. Intense attachment coupled with abrupt separation. It's called dynamic balance, an attitude in which you believe strongly but not mindlessly. You believe in your system but not in your ego. You stay open to what the market says, even if it violates your beliefs. It's similar to martial arts. The instant you stiffen, you lose fluidity. But if you're all softness, you'll get flung. True expertise encompasses both, firm and fluid. Structured but supple, Schwager relates the story of traders who made a fortune by being incorrect quickly. Not by avoiding mistakes, but by overcoming them before they spread. My best advantage? I change my mind more quickly than anyone I know. The majority of individuals find this terrifying. Why? We've been taught that changing your mind is a weakness. Backing down indicates a lack of confidence. However, in trading, persistence is the quickest way to disaster. Markets change, setups fail, the news breaks, momentum disappears. And if you're still stuck on your perfect theory, you're trading yesterday's conditions. So how does this look in practice? It entails establishing exit criteria and adhering to them, even if it hurts. It entails reevaluating your bias every day, not flip-flopping, but remaining honest. It means never falling in love with your trades, because the market certainly does not love you back. Schwager questioned one trader who said, "Every time I get too connected to a position, I push myself to scale down or walk away. Attachment is the start of blindness." Here is a trading proverb: strong opinions, loosely held. That is the essence. Retain your conviction like a sword while surrendering like a monk. Because flexibility is a strength in this game. It is a superpower. And once you conquer that paradox, you won't need to follow anyone. You stop looking for gurus. Because you've learned to trust the only expert who matters, your changing self. The next insight illustrates why successful traders choose to become their own master rather than followers. Insight 11. The anti-guru principle. If you come to the new market wizards expecting one trading system to rule them all, you'll be disappointed. But if you want to find your own inner compass, this book could change your life. Because after interviewing dozens of the world's finest traders, Jack Schwager noticed something peculiar. They all trade in different ways. There is some scalp, a few swings, some stick to fundamentals, others focus solely on price. Some are calm and calculated, others exhibit aggressiveness and intuition. Nonetheless, everyone wins. Why? They're not searching for someone to tell them what to do. They've established their own authority. This is the anti-guru philosophy, which marks a significant change from the internet culture of follow my signals, buy my course, and copy my trades. The true wizards do not sell magic formulas. In fact, they would probably avoid the moniker guru. They recognize that what benefits them may harm you. One trader informed Schwager, "My system only works because it is designed for my mind, emotions, and vulnerabilities." That amount of self-awareness is not something you can download. It is something you cultivate through trial, through loss, through observation. And here's something most people don't realize. When you outsource decision-making, you also outsource growth. You avoid the friction that would have made you stronger. This is not to say you shouldn't learn from others. It implies you must interpret everything you learn through the lens of who you are. You extract principles, not prescriptions. Think about it as music. A superb jazz musician does not mimic licks. They absorb them, play with them, twist them till something new appears. The style becomes a platform for their voice. Likewise with trading, the strategy is only a skeleton. You supply the soul. Schwager noted this as well. When he asked each dealer for tips to newbies, many responded the same thing. Don't attempt to be like me. Try to be yourself, at your best. One even stated, if you are mindlessly following someone, you are not trading. You are abdicating responsibility. Here's the uncomfortable truth. 97% of trading course buyers never make a profit. Not because the classes are awful, because they want someone else to save them. That is the true wisdom. Freedom does not come from following better leaders. It stems from self-leadership. So here's the challenge. Stop seeking for ideal systems. Begin to seek for inner signals, the ones that tell you when you're on track, when you're hurrying, and when you're lying to yourself. This allows you to trade like a sovereign rather than a student. That's when everything changes, because at that level, you aren't just playing the game. You are becoming someone the game was never meant to defeat. Finally, there comes a point where trading becomes a part of your identity. Insight 12. Becoming your own market wizard. By the end of the new market wizards, one thing becomes clear. These traders were not born different. They grew distinct. They didn't have any magic. They have a process. They did not have superpowers. They were self-aware. Most importantly, they did not wait to be picked. They picked themselves. Every one of them started the same way, confused, insecure, and apprehensive. Some derived from music, others from science, several from poker or business. Neither of them were financial prodigies. They were unrelenting. The market was not the catalyst for their transformation. This was their response to the market. Because here's the secret. Schwager never states out loud, but every page whispers it. Trading is simply a container for being the person you were always meant to be. What about these wizards? They didn't just find the edge. They discovered their identity. They learned to sit through discomfort, to move past fear, to reconstruct after a collapse. They confronted the aspects of themselves that most people spend their lives avoiding. And in doing so, they expanded outside their trading activities. They developed as humans. You can see it in their humility. They are detached. Their peaceful assurance. These are not gamblers. These are warriors for consciousness. This was their answer to the marketplace. Because here's the secret Schwager never says out loud, but every page whispers it. Trading is simply a container for being the person you were destined to be. What about the wizards? They didn't simply locate the edge. They found their true identity. They learned how to sit through discomfort, to go past fear, to rebuild following a collapse. They confronted aspects of themselves that most people try to ignore. In doing so, they extended beyond their commercial business. They developed as humans. You can see it in their humility. They are disconnected. Their serene certainty. They are not gamblers. These are warriors for consciousness. You no longer mistake randomness for rejection. You can see your progress in how quickly you cut losses, your ability to remain cool in the face of terror from others, and how little you deal when there is no advantage. That is the new scoreboard. This is what it means to be your own wizard, not by imitating someone else's spellbook. However, you can make your own mistakes, adjustments, and awakenings one at a time. Because the actual edge is not technical, it is psychological. True traders do not aim to outperform the market. It is someone who no longer requires it to feel complete. Remember what Paul Tudor Jones said, "I'm constantly concerned about losing money rather than generating money. Don't focus on making money. Instead, safeguard what you have." That isn't just trading advice, that is life wisdom. So, if you've gotten this far, you already know. You don't need any more advice. You don't need another guru. You must trust the process of becoming yourself, the version that the market can't shake, shatter, or ignore. The next step is to take action. Your next trade is not a position, it is a decision. You've just heard the 12 insights that helped shape some of the greatest trading brains in history. But here is the truth. Insights do not change your life. Integration does. So let us reflect. You discovered that the market is a mirror, displaying not only price patterns but also your deepest patterns. You've seen that the finest traders aren't courageous, they're paranoid. They live because they value risk more than profit. You realize that there is no holy grail, only systems that reflect the essence of who you are. You understood that suffering is not a punishment, it's a passageway. And the best dealers have all gone through it, burned, broken, and rebuilt. You realized that losing is a skill. Intuition is earned, and size is a silent killer. You watched how trade transforms into a spiritual dojo, a space to confront your ego and rewire your identity. Finally, you realize that the true transformation comes not from mimicking others, but from becoming your own market wizard. Now, I want you to do something powerful. Comment on the insight that struck you the hardest. Not only for me, not for the algorithm, but for you. Because typing it out activates memory. You give it form. You take a thought and make it into a commitment. Was it the moment you learned terror may be your advantage? Or that your greatest loss could become your best teacher? And if you're willing to go deeper, join the tribe. Subscribe, share this with a fellow trader who's been stuck in the cycle, and start a conversation. Because we grow faster together. Remember this. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity, and the market always knows who you really are. So make your next trade a step into that identity. I'll see you in the next chapter.